Alright, let's take a look at some of these heads. I'm going to first just scroll through, take a look here, here, and here. Okay. Okay, so I think in general you have a tendency of elongating the top of the head here. Um, and I think there's also a tendency of sloping the forehead back a little too far. The reason why that's kind of a problem is that when you slope it back to, I think that is changing the forms and making it look like you need to add more height. I assume that's why the heads are getting a little out of control as far as like how top heavy they get here. So just bringing it in a little bit like that, I think helps quite a bit. And let's push this out a little here. So when you slope it back too far too, it starts to give a general impression that the character is, I don't know, lowbrow or not quite as intelligent. It's just kind of like one of those. It kind of gives a Cro-Magnon feel to your head. So that's one thing. And then I think in addition to that, this side plane or that transition 3/4 plane is getting a little too broad. So we need to start bringing that back in because there should be a plane, not like a very smooth transition here. And then got that. So check from the side here. Okay, so we were getting a really flat here. I'm gonna just pull this forward instead of trying to. That will help round out those forms. Pull that forward, pull that forward, pull that forward. I think also in general your necks get really, really wide, or really deep, I should say. Let's look up, which one was I working on? Yeah, this one. So your necks get really wide or deep. For now too, maybe try to play up the fact that it's wider at the top. Oh, excuse me. It's wider at the top than it is at the base because it has to fit into the first set of ribs, and then any other mass you're gonna get. Any sort of shape like that really is trapezius. It's not necessarily the neck. No, move this. Just kind of keep things back. Yeah, I think these are just getting too wide. And I'm going to play with the depth of all this, just kind of get this to transition a little bit more smoothly. Pull that. Let's see here. Yeah, I think based off the eyes, I think we're getting too big overall here. I'm going to continue to move this forward. You know, I mentioned the idea of the general model, right? And this kind of comes from Carl Gauss, and how, or this, I guess, a sort of a drawing concept that I think we need to, or that I think is useful in applying to um, other fields as well. Let me switch gears and I'll just add something there. There's that, and then hold that thought. You also have a tendency of flattening out your nose. So I think basically creating more of a differentiation between the ball of the nose here, and then the nostril will start to help out a lot. Right? So then I can just kind of carry that up here. This will give me a little bit more sophistication in the actual shape of the nose. I mean, the bridge in the nose being like an actual bridge is fine as like kind of a block-in stage, but I think having some sort of like width and variety to it that nasal cartilage will help. I mean, so if you notice, I've taken the focus shift up on the clay buildup brush because I like how the clay buildup brush puts things down. But the more I am working, the less I actually like having the alpha. So when I take this shift up and I leave the alpha on, I still get the alpha, but it's a lot more subtle. Um, and as opposed to like, turning it off, where it's I think too soft. But the reason why I'm doing that now is that I feel like it's making me more deliberate, and then makes me less like hectic when I'm trying to build up stuff. And it's easier for me to clean up instead of having to like go over things a bazillion times. But let's continue back onto that topic of general model, right? That general model idea is really just like what your mind conceives as like an average, so that you can then push and pull to create your diverse forms and characters that way. I think it's important to have a general model, and that general model needs to be kind of well studied, right? So this is actually good practice because it does help refine what that general model is. But I think what I'm seeing is that there are some tendencies for you to kind of like have a bit of a like that general model that you have in your head, I think is kind of built on some misconceptions and some misinformation. And I'd rather that we tighten up those deficiencies now, right? Otherwise, I think you're just going to struggle for a long time as you try to reconcile what you perceive to be ahead, what you think are the important features of the head, and then versus like the reality of it, right? What is actually happening in the head here. Right, so there's that. When we're doing these general heads too, I think being more specific helps, right? So by specific, I mean creating a much more identifiable like lip profile. Even this becomes like super generic and very, I don't know, stereotypical. I think that is better than having like kind of a more ambiguous sense of what that is, because if your assumption of what is happening is purely that, just like kind of a vague idea, then I think your default for everything will be kind of vague. And so when it comes time to like being very specific about something, then that's where things will start to fall apart too, because you won't really have that. You won't have like a very solid or defined idea of what specificity is, right? So I guess I'm not going to go too far in the eye, just because I think once you do get, if we're just talking about just getting basic forms and just having some sort of like, maybe a little bit more of a bulge, right, instead of having a flat plane, because in that bulge, we could divide into the tear duct, the outside corner of the eye, and then either we can draw eyes closed, look fairly decent, or we can go through the process of just, if I just start sculpting a little bit more, then we get some semblance of an eye, right? Obviously spend more time and effort than I am right now, but really what matters is that general mass. Right? We're talking about like the blocking of the head. So maybe I'll just even leave it like that. We can kind of fill this in so it's a little bit less abrupt here. Um, and I'm going to start transition planes. Yeah, so you're missing a few transition planes here and there. When I look to the side, too, let's take a look here. Let's turn off that. Yeah, so another thing I'm noticing is that I think you push the eye socket too deep, too. So when you push it too deep and you look at, say, like this is a good example, then you're getting too much of this eye cavity. And what that does from the profile is it screws up the actual silhouette of the head, right? So if I push this, first of all, let's continue to work on this side plane of the forehead. Right, so let me just kind of reinforce what that is here. All right, let me smooth that out. So that'd be kind of one generic plane, one generic plane. And then if I move this forward, right, so then that starts to kind of fix some of that profile. Maybe I took that side plane a little too far. We'll keep it kind of like there, and I'll worry about the rest later. If I, yeah. So we don't want to see quite that much of the eye socket from this side, and then from here, it's kind of a matter of like fine-tuning these transition shapes, making sure that the zygomatic arch points a little bit more towards the ear hole itself instead of like the top part of the ear. So I'm going to move this up, I'll move this down, make sure that the top of the ear kind of lines up with the rigid brow. And then let's, if we're sticking to convention, then let's put the bottom of the ear kind of closer to the bottom of the nose. And then again, this, even though a lot of ears are different, I'm just gonna go for like a generic. I'm gonna pick at least one part of the ear to kind of stick out, just to create a more interesting profile and more interesting silhouette. And then from there, we can kind of rein it in. Yeah, so I really do think the general model should encompass a lot of things that doesn't have just an ear and the shape of an ear being like a flat ear. Um, you know, having those characteristics kind of built into how we're thinking about these forms can really help inform our decisions on how to treat certain areas later. Right, so that, we can create that kind of transition in the jaw from that mass here. That can kind of continue down. You have to be kind of subtle with this, otherwise it starts to kind of age your character. And then not forgetting the underplane of the jaw here. I think this is getting kind of round in a weird way, so I'm going to flatten that out. Or not flatten it out, I'm going to do more of a diagonal transition. Yeah, even with these kinds of lips too, even though they're kind of generic, let's create that here. That just means the philtrum needs to come up higher. There you go. And then I think that also means the lower lip is too protruding too far, and you're not getting like a front plane like there. right? So on the idea of like having that general model being a little bit more specific is that for something like the lips, it just makes it so that it identifies as lips much more easily, and then afterwards you can worry about getting them. Well, is the face going to be thin lips? Is the upper lip a lot thinner? Is the lower lip a lot thinner? Um, Usually the lower lip can't. I don't think it can be thinner than the top lip. But um, if you just have everything kind of start off that way, then everything will kind of look the same, right? So it's not going to give you that middle ground flexibility of going thin and then thicker. You're going to have either the baseline thin, it won't get anything lower than thin, and then you're gonna be stuck working upwards to thicker. Um, so there's my critique of this head in particular, and then yeah, I'll just quickly go through some of these other heads, and the same idea, like you're getting this like kind of Cro-Magnon look. That Cro-Magnon look is also one of the problems too is if you look at the forms and you look at the highlighting across it, it sticks out way too much. It kind of highlights that brow area. So if you just kind of push all this around, and then right now you kind of overemphasize the underplane of the jaw, which will automatically age the head quite a bit. Right? It's all looking very boxy, and but that just means I need to change the depth, the relative depth of everything here. I think already this kind of reads a little bit more. The wider or the longer you wait to create that transition plane from forehead to temple is the more well, the wider your brow ridge will be, and then that's consequently going to make you feel tempted to widen the or lengthen the eye. So it's going to create a lot of problems that stack up like that. And I can push this forward. Look at the highlighting here. Even though the nasolabial fold is going to be something that creates like a bit of a transition plane, we still want this, mask of the head to be highlighted in a certain way. I like that general arc here. That's fine. And I like how you're getting a little bit more variation. I mean, I think that still the bridge itself could use some more variation, but then the transition is working better in this one. And then again, I'm going to kind of like make sure that there is a little bit more of a distinction between the head of the nose and the nostrils. And then let's kind of the same thing. I think you kind of get the idea. It's a combination of working it like this one and then like this one. Here, I think, yeah, you definitely taking the top of the head way too high. We're just like looking at it from a sense of just arcs, right? So there should always be some sort of a outwards curve, generally speaking, to the face. If there's like a receding area in the mouth, then that's usually like a dental kind of thing. So the teeth are probably either missing or not shaped. Maybe they've grown inwards, so that creates those kinds of differentiations. We could, if you wanted to, we could take this head into a kind of a different direction, just kind of more solidify the angle of the bridge in the nose, and maybe there's less of a distinction in the in general, where that break from forehead to nasal cavity goes. Again, we're getting a little too wide here. Yeah, so when you go too wide with these planes, let me turn the perspective. Let's turn this down to like 30. Yeah, it is good to turn on and off your perspective so you get a more accurate sense of how things are being shaped. Just too wide, too deep, too thick. It's fine if these end up being like different kinds of head types. It's just that we need to make sure that these head types, whatever variation, whatever non-standard changes that we're seeing or we're putting in, like they have to make sense though. And right now they're not enough features are grouping up. They're not really playing with each other and working with each other to kind of emphasize, oh, this is like a stockier kind of build, heavier set kind of guy. Those are really more important. I think we're getting too long in general. Yeah, so I'm just using the move tool a lot on this particular head. But that's okay. Alright, I mean this one could still use some more work, but I think I'll kind of come back to this one here in some sense. Maybe tweak it some more, but turn on perspective, see if I'm going crazy with what I'm looking at or not. I think maybe the lips are just getting a little too much. Okay, so there's this, there's that, and then let's take a look at your more refined head. So I'm honestly really not a fan of this. I know where it comes from, but so I'm going to present some pictures with you here. So we've got some of these cool stylized sculpts. This one's from Philippe Farrell. He's awesome. But I think they are, in your particular case, doing you more harm than they're doing good. In general, I prefer, I think there's also another Philippe Farrell one. This one, I think, makes more sense to me. Yasaral's head is like proportionally kind of unusual for me, but I still agree with this a little bit more, even though this isn't the original. But yeah, this is the original here, where you're just getting front plane, side diagonal plane, and then side plane, right? Front plane, transition, side. This, I would argue, is more accurate, and it's because of the fact that you can observe it more easily. Sure, maybe I guess, yeah, this is another Philippe Farrell one. It's not that it doesn't exist and it's not a thing. It's just that for one, I think it's you're not sure where to end it, and then you're not sure where to end the actual kind of protruding ball of the forehead. So that is making you elongate all your heads all the time. And so, even if you bring up, Josh Brolin, who you're kind of going after, and yeah, I see it. There's some of that's happening, but it's very subtle. I don't think you should take this too far. In a lot of cases, I think you can just simplify it to that front plane, transition plane, side plane, right? Even if you just look at this one where it's a little bit more obvious what you're doing with this kind of ridge and ball shape, it's still like, if you just squint your eyes, and you just generalize it to front plane, transition plane, side plane. I think that's an easier read. You can worry about some of those other details later. Um, and you look at Henry Cavill. I think he's known as someone who has a very kind of classic Western features that are easy to observe, right? Like here, just think of it as front plane, side plane. And if this is like its own little trapezoid shape, so be it. You know, that kind of shape here that creates from between the eyes and the rigid brow. I think that will solve some of the problems that I keep seeing in your sculpts. Right. So you could do it as a big hole. This could be front plane, transition plane, side plane. If you want to break it down a little further, it'd be front plane, this kind of trapezoid shape for the bridge of the eye. And what that really is just going to equate to is creating is just creating this here. And that's going to basically just try and find a three-quarter view. You know, equivalent would be, you know, that protrusion of where the eyebrow hits the rest of the skull, right? Right, and I think that's, I didn't really do it on this one, but let's say if we do it on this one, I'm just going to kind of simplify. I think your Dynamesh is too high. Or your, okay, so you subdivided. This is way too high. I think for the level that you're working at, or this level of detail, I mean, I think even your base is probably enough. Yeah, there's no reason to go to level 3 because everything that I'm seeing here, this is more important here, right? So we could simplify this into front plane, transition plane, right? Before I go any further, I think everything that I said in the previous heads is happening here, right? You're going too wide on the bridge of the brow ridge, which is making you elongate your eyes itself. And then is, you know, the actual convention of what is your prototypical eye needs to change. This is going too deep. You'll never see this much of an eye from the side. Right? So we'll go in. Maybe part of that is more creating this transition plane here. And then we'll create that trapezoid shape of where that protrusion begins and ends. This is also getting a little awkward. This arc, it's kind of following some of the simplifications of the skull, but it's also not quite accurate, especially once you put flesh on top. Right? If you're going to put in that fleshy brow shape, then a lot of this has to start kind of changing as well. And then as I bring all that down, and I bring this forward, and then now we can continue to adjust a lot of these shapes here. Let's just look at, there's got to be a profile view of him somewhere. Side view. Yeah, see, he doesn't go back that far, and then I'm sure Henry Cavill as well. Yeah, here we go. or this is even better. You're just not gonna get that slope. That slope is just gonna give him like a caveman look, right? And then we can kind of adjust some of this. Maybe I took it a little too far down. No, I think that's still okay. If we're gonna kind of work on the bald head, then we'll kind of round out some of that. You know, I think you're losing volume in your cheeks. You've taken that side plane a little too literally. Maybe I'll just base it off of him for now. I think you might be going a little overboard with the flashy transition from the side of the nose into the face. Maybe the nose itself is too wide, which is going to like just change a lot of proportions. Yeah. Now, part of this isn't just maybe the way I've approached resolving it. It's basically making all your features way too big. So now your mouth is too big. And once you get to this stage too, we really need to be careful about what exactly is happening here, because now you've kind of lost the entire lip area to begin with, right? You're losing the fact that the lower lip usually is delineated more towards the middle. Then it kind of fades off a little bit more towards where it enters the actual mouth socket or mouth lips area, where it meets the rest of the lips, and then kind of filling in a lot of these shapes, right? So now, yeah, this is getting too lumpy. You're losing that sense of form. Like I don't know what's going on there, because there's so many cavities here. You need to make sure that nasolabial fold starts from the above the nostril. You need to make sure that there's a little bit more distinction in what's happening in between the nostril wings, or the nasal wings, and then the ball of the nose. And then let's take a look at filling this in. I suspect this is getting too flat. Too flat. We need to kind of take this back. Take this back. Smooth it out. This really needs to fill in this way. And then what is it? Something's happening. What is happening? Something. So we could push this back. I'm gonna flatten this out again. Sometimes I just need to kind of repeatedly take things away as I try to fix things. Need to bring this forward just so this highlighting kind of matches up. Just so now we're getting the front plane of the face, which is created by that kind of mask area. This I think is protruding too far. That's why there's too much roundness there. It's again, part of the reason why this is too round is because we've lost the actual lips. I'll put it pretty heavy-handed. That'll help me at least figure out where the planes are. And then do that. We'll do this. I think this is all going too far back. Chin is protruding too far forward. Again, neck's too deep. Everything else is starting to get too wide. Diagrammatic arch is going a little crazy here. I think getting too wide here, and then I'll start smoothing this out. I do want you to also smooth more, because I think having some of these impressionistic clay buildup marks is starting to throw you off. It becomes a lot harder to read what the forms are doing when it gets to that stage, because there are like too many bumps, too many cavities to kind of try and keep track of. This is getting way too long. What is that? Okay, so I'm losing the sense of where the head begins and ends. So I'm going to put that in here. Okay. Okay, I took that too far inwards, so let's kind of smooth that out. Let's kind of create some more. And of course, if it helps you, I would probably just create like an insert mesh brush with just like this ear shape, and then have it separate, because this actually really kills a lot of stuff. Having that ambiguous shape, it just totally screws your silhouette, and it screws with like your sense of like what is happening. So in the interest of like accuracy and time, for now, maybe just like sculpt this out roughly and then have it as a shape, so that you're not fighting this transition point between when you're sculpting the different areas out. And as I'm doing this too, I keep shrinking things, but then the top of the head still like is too tall. I need to be careful about how I shape some of these. I think I didn't smooth out the neck enough. So now, the sternocleidomastoid mastoid is getting all wobbly. It's a little too thick, so we'll tuck it back in, create a better sense of where the base of the skull is. I'm going to keep pushing this in, otherwise it starts looking like a improperly shaped trapezius, and then we'll go top. This is telling me that this needs to kind of come forward. Once that comes forward, that starts to round out the head. And then, okay, so I think the other problem was like the eyes were too wide. which is probably what happened when your eye got too long, and then I pushed the outside corner in. So then I made everything to that offset everything too. So let's push this in, make sure that this is on. Lips. So I've generalized the process into creating the fold of the node here, and then we're basically getting three shapes. We're getting the inside corner of the top lip, right? So I'll build that out as a form. Got the actual sided cheek kind of thing going here. I'm just gonna, I keep bouncing around as I see other problems, but I'll get back to mouth in a bit, making sure that this actually reads properly. Otherwise, anatomically looks kind of weird. Having a distinct nostril. These will maybe a fold. Filling it this way too, make sure that the node doesn't get too deep in that cavity. And then we're going to treat that lower part of lips. And then I think we get a lot more form going. And this is too wide. This should really fit a little bit more like that. I'm going to work on this front plane of the head here. Make sure this jaw is better. Yeah, so another note about like the clay buildup brush strokes is that I think it's probably fine if you know what you're doing, like for sure, you've got a lot of experience, but otherwise it starts to, I think it introduces too many variables and makes it easier to kind of screw certain things up. Then so the back of the head is kind of weird. Okay, let's continue to really differentiate the ear from the side of the head. Okay. Maybe we need to square off the head a little bit more, just to kind of fit the design language that I've been putting in. And then we can kind of like take a look back at where we started. Write it up, and then scroll through some of the other changes. So here, I don't think I touched this one much. Only briefly touched on this one. I mean, this could probably just go like that, and that would probably fit a little bit better. So let's go ahead. I'm going to save this out. We'll call it okay, feedback head 3. And then let me take a look at that other head here. Alright, so same thing. Your head is getting too big, too tall top, right? So I'm going to just switch back to a nightcap gray. Too big. neck's too deep, too thick, entire head is too deep. Let's turn off poly paint. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. Okay. Okay, I think your data mesh resolution is too high. I don't know, man. I think I would take this down. There's no need to go that high. Yeah, I think this is plenty. Right, so this, me moving this around too is helping to create that transition plane. When I look at this profile, that's saying this forehead is sloping back too far. This is sloping in too much, or concaving in. So if I pull that out, this profile becomes a lot more natural. If it pushes forward, this starts becoming more natural from the side. Now it's just kind of a matter of, you know, reining all these shapes in. Making sure that the ear is in the right place. Right. Continuing to really readjust these proportions here. I could just pull this down now, or I can kind of shave it in, shave it off here. Yeah, this shape too, you're getting for that general brow shape is going way too high. Like, it should really, if we just think of it as the simplest forms of just like a straight in the corner, I think that would help. You can add the other top stuff on top once you establish this break. Now that I've moved everything kind of forward, let's move the eyes forward. Check the size of your eyes. Given what I'm seeing, I think they're too small, based off of like the rest of the head. So I'll move this, move that, and then we'll make sure that the upper eyelid is overhanging the lower eyelid, just so that it can properly blink. I think the actual shape of your eyes too are getting a little too generic. I think this inside corner is probably pulling in too far. Right, if we want to, I'm going to kind of force some more standard or conventional planes right now, which I think even that is probably too high if we're looking at things from a conventional standpoint. This is going too high, this isn't properly wrapping around, so that could be also, we can continue to make this bigger, move it forward in more. This, you really want this mask shape here, right? That mask shape is defined by this and then this. So this general rhythm of the head here. Zygomatic arch is getting too pronounced. You're getting weird concavity again in the upper lip area. Again, let's create some distinction between the ball of the nose and the nostrils. I think your noses have a tendency to get too wide too, in general. I think a lot of things just get proportionally a little out of place here. So let's try and figure out what's happening. If I just pull this forward, alright, so this we need to fill in to kind of create that nice lighting that happens across really solid forms. Let me smooth this out first. Let's try to mix that, smooth this out. And then some of those conventions that I have for like the general mouth shape. Seeing a lot of unusual divots in these forms, a lot of unusual concavities. So I can still go pretty angular with these shapes, just as far as like blocking goes. You know, just having a forward, you know, backslash or the forward slash, whatever, keystroke look to the top of the ear. This relationship right there should help. Maybe this forehead in general is going too far up. This is getting too ambiguous. Okay, so then this needs to come in, and there we go. Go back to nasolabial fold above the nostril. This eye is looking kind of funny. I think the symmetry is off, so let's fix that. There we go. And you know, once you get this, then you're kind of free to start breaking this, having the then have layering on like eyebrows. I think these eyes are actually, yeah, they're too big. So let's pull this forward, let's pull that forward. What's happening here? I think just something off about the orientation. So the alignment between the tear duct and then outside corner of the eye. Okay, I think it's just that we're kind of missing a distinct pattern to it. Alright, so yeah, lowering perspective is going to help me see things a little bit more objectively. Maybe I pulled the mouth in too much. Then I'm just gonna smooth this out here. Smooth this. Make sure the ear is more distinct. Make sure as I'm looking from different angles, especially this 3/4 view, how's that varying from the side? Do I just need to push that volume forward so we get more of that? Looks like the cheeks could use more volume. I can take this back down. Something's really bothering me with the eye. Maybe I do need a little bit more resolution. So let's go like 250 and then start to mesh that. I think part of it is just not having a natural overlap from upper eyelid to lower eyelid, not having a good filling out of the eye socket with blush as it enters the outside corner. Possibly not even really having the upper eyelid defined very well. Alright, so we'll define that. Just kind of readjust this. And then really I think honestly for like a quick head, I'm not sure I would even make the eyes separate, because I think it takes a little bit of time to really define the proper width and depth of the eyelids themselves. And sometimes that's actually more of a hassle than, say, generalizing a form. Generalizing the form and just sculpting something just right on top of the head itself. I think I just keep shrinking. Maybe that's just kind of a bad habit. One of my bad habits is that I tend to just shrink and shrink and shrink. And we're kind of running to that here. But I'm going to try and put some of these planes back in. This is getting a little weird. Something like this. Let's just kind of like pull this back. And then pull it forward, and I mean, some of this can still probably either go forward, go back. Its neck is still way too deep. It's still way too wide at the base. If I look at the fronts, I should get a better sense of where everything's going. And let's fill this in here. Really trying to define where the cranium, bottom of the cranium is. Looking from the top, making sure that we are getting the right rounded shapes everywhere. a little bit more definition in some areas. I'm gonna fill that volume in, and then recreate that again. No, that looks terrible. Let's leave it the way it was. Stop noodling. Oh, I think I got rid of a lot of stuff here. And from here, I think this is when I would start filling in that fatty tissue from the nostrils. You can create that solid inner form from there. I mean, this could still probably keep going forward just a touch. Right. Okay. Cool. I think that covers most of the head problems. Hope that helps.